one thing that's been hard for sure, is that, like most people that are in bands, they have, you got like 4 people writing music, promoting the music, paying for, the cost of recording. And, it's like 4 times the time, it's 4 times the effort. And then not only that, but when you're in a band, you have every member has friends and family and, supporters. It's definitely been a bit of a struggle, trying to do everything on your own, but I feel like if I wasn't a solo artist, I would just never get anything done. I was living with my brother. They were getting mad at me because I would just lay in bed all day, while I was trying to recover from that mold. And it's the kind of thing where, you would look at me and it looks like there's nothing wrong, so like, it looks like I'm okay, like I'm just being lazy, like I'm not doing anything, but I'm actually the kind of person that I'm a go-getter, like I like to work, I like to hustle, but anyways, we wound up kind of getting into it, and I left there, and I actually wound up moving across the street to the neighbor's house, and then he wanted me to remodel his kitchen. And so then I was like, yeah, it'll be like $1,000. And then he freaked out about, it being $1,000, which I thought was like a crazy deal, even though I was, living at that house. At the same time I was doing that, I was working at the studio, but while I was there, the owner found out I was a carpenter, and then was like, hey, I got a bunch of stuff, that you could rebuild, or this or that, or I wound up bartering with him, to do the album. Again, I'm just there. I was just trying to fix a couple things on my original album, and he talks me into like retracking everything, and so I'm like, okay, whatever. And then like I'm bartering with the guy and like doing all kinds of work and this and that. So we start tracking it. I'm not really feeling the way the drums are sounding, and at some point he just stopped messing with it. They just stopped working on it, I guess, because I didn't like the way he was doing the drums, but he had never even gotten close to like editing the drums, so it turned into this thing to where, I just worked and worked and worked and worked and worked and worked and worked. 5 years had went by, and I still don't have an album, but I've done, thousands of dollars worth of work. I spent quite a bit of time, trying to work on my music, but eventually the guy I was staying with, it made him mad, so then he kicked me out. And then Gary told the owner of the studio, hey, Marcus just got kicked out, so and the owner was like, yeah, well, you can live here, take any room you want, It was a pretty big place, like upstairs it had like a bunch of rooms and a big kitchen and a bathroom. I chose this little tiny room that didn't have any windows, They were just, in my mind I was thinking, well, this is cool, like, because I was working on my music. I felt like if I moved into a studio, I would wake up and live and breathe music, but it actually didn't turn out like that. I wound up doing tons of work, pretty much working there full time, except that I wasn't making any money. I'd pretty much run out of money and was broke, practically starving. I used to help, set up the microphones for recording sessions, and we'd have some national acts come in to use the place as like a rehearsal studio before they'd go on tour. Like GAVIN DEGRAW came through there, Ace Frehley. It was just a bunch of artists. So GAVIN DEGRAW comes and he rents the place out to for rehearsal, right? Well, the owner supposedly doesn't have any money. I think he did some weird stuff, and he wound up running into some lump sum of money. And I'm over here working full time, starving. Like I don't even know what I'm gonna eat next. He pulls in with his Ferrari. Like he literally just bought this Ferrari to look cool in front of Gavin DeGraw. It was like have you ever heard that saying? That people say, "Don't go broke trying to look rich." That's that was the first thing that I thought of. This went on for about 5 years, and finally, after 5 years, like, oh god, this is just never ever gonna happen. I remember I was just trying to fix a couple things on my original album, and I remember, Gary told me, like, he's kind of told me after they tried to, talk me into retracting everything. He was like, man, that album sounds good enough, man. I wouldn't waste that. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Going through that, having to retract. They didn't finish my first album. They never finished it. I had to release my original album. 5 years goes by, and then I make more music. Then they just wipe out all of my sessions, like wipe it out, totally gone. So I basically just spent 5 years of my life, working like a slave. Even slaves get fed. I worked and I worked and I worked and I worked. Had nothing to show for it. Nothing. So, when you're listening to Different Than You, I got stuck. That's the only track I had left. Like, I had, this rough version of it. I got stuck, putting that out. Like, there's a lot of things I wanted to fix on there that I wasn't totally happy with, and didn't get mastered right. And, I've been working on other music, tons of music, just totally wiped out. They got rid of everything. One day it was there, one day it was off. And then I started to, work on my carpentry business, and then started to put a lot more effort into that because it was obvious that, nothing was ever going to happen. I can't say I learned a whole lot other than in the music business, most people are just totally full of shit. You gotta really be making music because you just love it, because, the odds of, making a living at it is pretty slim, One day I get this text message from the owner of the studio saying, I just changed the locks. If you want to get in, you have to give me $1,000. And needless to say that, that really pissed me off, I've never felt so betrayed in my life. They erased all my music. I had literally nothing to show for it. 10 years of my life. Who does that? It's like sending someone to prison for 10 years for a crime they didn't commit. I had to call the police, and the police even called them, and they were like, yeah, you got to give them the stuff back. And they wouldn't open the door, so I had to call the police again. They were finally like, yeah, break in, get your stuff. So I had to break in with it. I had to get a 30-foot ladder and climb into the second story window to get into the building to get my stuff. I haven't spoke to him again. They used to rent this place out to this church every Sunday morning. I used to have to set up all the microphones and get everything ready and open the door at 8 o'clock in the morning and let the people in for church, and they would all congregate in the live room. And I did that for a few years. Eventually they kind of grew out of. Their congregation got too big, and then they bought their own building somewhere else. And they knew that by them being there, they found out that I was a carpenter or whatever, and they asked me if I'd help them build some stuff. So I help them build their stage there. I was working on this custom sound room with these sound glass sliding doors that you could record the music playing from the church. Things happened to where I wasn't making any money there. I wasn't charging them. I don't know. I think they gave me money to buy the materials, but then they acted like I was charging them too much. But I wasn't making anything at all. I've always had this problem. I've always I believe in God, and I want to do God's will. I want to be a good person. I want to help out, do what I can. towards the end of that, it was like I was being persecuted for like being greedy, and I didn't make anything. Like I didn't make a dime off of that. Like all they paid for was the materials, you know. What was weird about that situation is it felt like I was trying to do something for God, you know, and like it felt like they were forcing me to fail because I didn't have any money to like fund their project. At the time, I didn't. I didn't have enough money to eat, so like I had eventually just had to walk away from it because I was that was like the hardest thing on me because like I don't know, like it broke my heart inside. Like I don't know, like I felt like I was being judged, you know, for but all I was trying to do was help.